Hospitals. Now we start our discussion on some of the prominent businesses where we have some serious ethical challenges. Perhaps one of the most important of these institutions, businesses, is the hospital. It's a business, but it's a service too. And therefore, there is a conflict of interest. On the one hand, it's the health of the society which is being taken care of. On the other hand, they are being charged for it. And the owners of these privately run hospitals are earning their revenues by charging people for the cure that they are offering to them. So, obviously, on the one hand, one might say that the better the service, the more people are going to come to the hospitals that have good reputation. Yet, on the other hand, there is a likelihood that even in this competition of free market, there could be certain unethical practices going on. And obviously, the likelihood that the practices are going to be unethical is greater when you're talking about competition which is not quite as free as one would like it to be. Because in a free market, you assume that full information is available to everybody. But that quite often is not fully satisfied. It is not satisfied as a condition. One of the things that obviously is important is that the charges should be reasonable. And when one says reasonable, obviously it's a statement which is vague. It needs to be objectively defined. And the system, the government, should step in to make sure that people are not charged exorbitantly because they are ill, they are taken ill. So charges should be in accordance with what the costs are involved, what the services have been rendered. And patients shouldn't be diagnosed and retained to make revenues. Quite often it so happens that the diagnosis is not quite as serious if it is taken genuinely from the reports. Yet it is made to appear more serious than what it is, because in that way the hospitals are going to be able to retain their patients and make them go through the kind of cure which is more expensive, which obviously is dirty, it's unethical, and needs to be avoided at all costs. Yet, because there is this lingering temptation of making more revenues, this is something which is resorted to. Quite often it is complained that even though the heart patient doesn't need any stents, yet the immediate response from the doctors come that it indeed needs to be given stents, which is obviously a pretty expensive affair, and it causes harm to the patient, and revenues are generated. It is absolutely unethical. Quite obviously, many decisions are subjective, and it is for the doctor to use his own judgment to decide as to what kind of cure should be given to the patient. Yet, the fact of the matter is that in many cases, the decision is not quite as subjective. And even if it's subjective, the welfare of the patient should always be at the back of the mind of the doctors while deciding as to what kind of cure should be given. Revenues should be generated only when they are justified. Although it's not a rule, yet ideally, good, professionally run private hospitals should have concessions available for the deserving patients, those who cannot afford, through asking get them to pay lower than what the other patients are paying, or in some cases to make available services free of charge. So on the one hand, hospital business is indeed a good business. It's a much needed business by the society, because through this business, people are given good health. Uh, their health is taken care of. Yet, it really has certain areas where uh, ethics, morality is an issue which really needs to be taken very seriously, very carefully.